They just kind of get onto that little clamp, squeeze down, and that's why those things work so well, because they grip on so much better than anything else. They won't slip. I usually hit that little lock right there, and it holds it open. And I just set that over to the side and just kind of let it be, because it ain't going to be touched. Now you got your Cummins oil filter wrench, and you want to orient it to where you're going lefty-loosey, and just basically grip onto it like that, if you can see. Get a good shot of that? Okay. And just take her on loose, and pops off nice and easy. And then so all it is basically just a little mesh, and just inside there. I pop it up there, put it where you want, throw it around, play football with if you want. I don't care. Just don't break it. Alright, now we got the big boy that we have to take loose. We got a nut in there, and we also got to get the engine turned in the correct direction. And let me go get the appropriate tools that we're going to need for that. This is your 1 1/16 socket, half-inch drive, and I forgot to mention earlier, you do need a half-inch ratchet to kind of get in there. And this is where the cheater pipe will come in handy, because sometimes that nut is very, very, very tight for a good reason. And you just basically get it back to where, watch your negative, positive battery terminal. And you just extend the line out just a little, ratchet out a little bit, and just crack it loose just like so. And it should just come right off. Okay, this is very important on this step, that you take your time and you know what you're doing. You got a nut that I would think that'd be pretty hard to drop down in there, but try not to drop it down the front cover. So you got this nut right there. And you also have a lock washer that you need to be very aware of and be very conscious that you don't drop that down in there. Very important that you don't lose that. And just kind of set that over there with that nut. And what I generally like to do is put them up here in the cow so they can't make a trip down into the land of no return in the engine bay there. Those of you who work on vehicles enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Go ahead. Okay, this is our pump with the gear and the keyway. Notice how the keyway is in the upward position, or up in the facing. I don't know if you can see the TDC. Can you see that, Gary?
Yep.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay. There's a hash in the top. You want to make sure the keyway, not that there's a little hash in the gear. Make sure that hash in the gear is facing in the downward direction. Always look for the keyway hash in the gear. There's a little groove in it. You want to make sure that is in upward position before you press that gear off. If you don't have that in the upward position, your day could be ruined, because what happens is that keyway is going to be downward, facing downward, and the key could fall out and go into the front cover. It's rare, but it has happened. You want to make sure you give yourself every possible chance that that key doesn't fall out, and the best way to do this is making sure it's in the upward direction when you pull this pump out, so that way it can't fall out easily. It still can, but it's not going to be not as easy as if it was facing in the downward direction. So always make sure, get you a mirror, make sure you orientate that gear up, and if you need to, you can spin the pump, the whole engine over, make sure it's out of gear. If it's a 5-speed or 6-speed, speaking from experience, it's not fun when you're sitting there struggling for 15 to half an hour trying to figure out why the engine's not turning over. Not that I would like to admit that I've done that, but I have. So make sure it's out of gear. Automatics you can just leave in park, because it's generally they got enough slip in them in the torque converter that allow you to spin them over. The nut that you want to use is basically a 15/16 nut, and act like you're loosening the nut, and it'll spin the engine over. You don't have to use a barring tool. Real simple trick that I've learned. A lot of people like to use barring tools to spin the engine over whenever you're doing basically trying to get that gear set. Some people can use the starter, but then when you hit the key, you've got this stuff unplugged, you're going to set codes, so it's probably not the best way to go. And you want to go like you're loosening that nut up. So just kind of, there you go, and as you can see the shaft is turning as I do that. And I'm not going to have to go very far on this one. I got my hash, it's sitting right dead straight up right now. And